via telephone Senator Jason Barrett. He is Finance Chair in the State Senate. Good morning, JB.
Good morning. Maria, I want you to know that I have the exact same problem with those headphones when I'm in the studio.
You're just making me feel good. Thank you, Jason.
No, it's the truth. Ask Rob, just tell you.
Oh, yeah, it happens to everybody here. There is one commercial break every show if we have people in studio as guests when we've got to run over there and undo the headphone hinge.
Okay, good. Makes me feel better.
But
Thanks,
these are more durable than the other ones we had. Those things, when you would pull them over your head, the tops would snap.
I'm glad that doesn't happen.
There's always something, right?
Yeah.
Jason, you getting a cold, man? You got the Barry White voice going on.
Well, I do. I don't have a cold. I'm not sick at all. But I think, I've had a ton of meetings over the past 2 days in my office where people come in to ask for money. And I think I've just lost my voice telling them all no. So I think that's the issue.
Not surprising whatsoever, Senator.
I thought that was the vice chair of finance's job, was to be your bad guy for you.
No, that's how they do it in the House. And, in the Senate, we don't operate that way. We just come out and tell you.
Well,
everybody's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Who is your vice chair?
Senator Roland Roberts from Raleigh County.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Let's talk about some legislation. Before we get into some of the broader things, I want to get into something specific, and that is food dye, Jason, and some legislation that you'll be sponsoring. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I'm introducing a bill that I'm really passionate about, and that is a bill that prohibits the use of synthetic dyes in food that will be used in a public education setting, so that all food that is served to students in West Virginia public schools will be prohibited from using synthetic dyes. I think there's a ton of research that overwhelmingly indicates that there are significant behavioral changes, not for the better, in young children, especially when they consume dyes, for example, Red 3 and Red 40 and the others. So I think, the unfortunate reality is in West Virginia that there are students in our system that really receive one quality hot meal a day, and that's in the school. And we should do everything we can to provide the best quality of food, when they get that meal. And so I think that what I've noticed across other states, and the Virginia House has done it, they've passed legislation very similar to this that bans and prohibits these synthetic dyes to be used in school settings.
Can you give us some examples of what foods are using these synthetic dyes that we might see in the cafeterias?
Yeah, and that's a great question. A lot of it is the prepackaged foods. A lot of time they're breakfast items, the prepackaged breakfast items, and these companies that manufacture and make these products in Europe, they're able to offer the same products without these synthetic dyes. And I think there'll somebody told me the other day that big food and big drink and these folks were going to fight this bill, and my response was, well, big deal. I think this is incredibly important for the benefit of our children, our students.
We are seeing an alarmingly large number of younger people getting diseases that only older people got in the past, things like colon cancer and various other cancers of the inner organs there. And it's got to come back to the diets that we eat, obviously pollutants in the atmosphere, but the diet, your grandma was right, your mother was right, fruits and vegetables. It's got to grow in the ground, because if it's processed food, it's ultimately not good for you in the long run. And a lot of these processed foods contain these types of dyes, Jason.
Yeah, I think largely the food that people consume in this country is bad. I think the quality of our food in a lot of cases could be a hell of a lot better. And I think that and I think that's you look at obesity and you look at these health problems. And largely it's because of the food that we consume, and that's a big part of it. And then the way that we as a society has tried to correct that is to come out with one or some new great drug that makes you lose weight, and that causes another host of problems. And so, I think this is an important first step in really improving the health of West Virginians. To make sure that our students have quality food. And you talked about some of the illnesses that are related to the things we consume. And I think it was in 1990 that Red 3 was not allowed to use in cosmetics because it caused cancer. However, 35 years later, we allow people to consume it. So I think that the FDA and the federal government should really step up and do a better job with this. But until they do, I think it's our responsibility as a state legislature to do what's in the best interest of our kids and not wait around the federal government.
Jason, you mentioned in the press release I read that it's also related to behavioral issues. What sorts of tie-ins are there in regards to that, and what proof do you have that they are tied in?
Sure. Well, I mean, there are there are several documentaries. There's a lot of research out there that shows restlessness, irritability, aggressiveness, inattentiveness. I probably mispronounced that, but you understand what I'm trying to tell you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the symptoms of ADHD, and I think, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of a lot of people smarter than I am, is that sometimes the behavior and that's resulted from consuming these dyes is being diagnosed as ADHD. Now, I'm not here to tell you that ADHD isn't a real thing. I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying that, but I think that there are, and I believe strongly that there are times where ADHD is misdiagnosed because it's really a reaction and a result of synthetic food dyes.
Yeah. Good morning, Jason.
You guys can ask Jason about anything, by the way. It doesn't have to be about food dyes.
No, I was going to follow up on this as well. And congratulations. I think this is something that is that's important. You mentioned in your press release that California has already banned the synthetic dyes, and Virginia is thinking about doing the same thing. How much of an industry pushback was there in California?
That's a great question, Bill, and I don't know. And I would imagine that there was a lot of pushback because, when a state like West Virginia does it, it doesn't really send that big of a message to big food because, they can just say, oh, well, West Virginia, we're not losing a lot of money. But when a state like California is the amount of food that is purchased in a state like California, when they do something like that, it should really change the way these food companies look at it, how they manufacture and what ingredients they put in there. But again, these same food companies that send food to Europe and or maybe they even manufacture it in Europe. I'm sure they have plants there as well. The exact same food, the exact same thing. However, the coloring comes from fruits and vegetables and those things as opposed to synthetic dyes. And it really comes down to profit. That's why these food companies do it. There's no benefit. There's no good reason to use synthetic food dyes. The two reasons really are things look prettier and they're more appealing to children, and they're cheaper. And that's in my view, those are the only two reasons to use synthetic food dyes as opposed to a natural way to color food.
But they're everywhere, Jason. We've talked 2 or 3 times this morning about the care package that Maria brought in for hospice today. I look at the care package. Practically everything.
It's all processed.
It's all processed.
Sorry.
All colored by the dyes. So.
Well, you don't want to eat it all every day, all day, Bill. Just saying.
No. But you're missing my point. Excuse me, sorry.
I can never miss your point, Bill.
All right, back to Jason. Jason, but hey, there's an interesting statement Chris Chernock made on our Facebook live stream, which is this is what happens when you deregulate everything. So there is a big push for deregulation, and usually when Republicans are in control, that's when the big push happens for deregulation. And Elon Musk is currently going through the government to find out where there are waste and fraud and abuse and too much regulation. Is this a regulation, Jason? Is this something that would count as that if you put this line?
Well, I think this is absolutely something that the FDA should have over the decades should have regulated and banned these products. And so you can blame whatever administration and whatever party you want, but again, both parties have been in charge of the federal legislature and as well as the White House since 1990, and back into the 70s when some of these things have come out. But in the past 35 years, back to 1990, Red 3 was banned because there was evidence that it caused cancer, and it was banned in cosmetic products, but we still allowed to consume it. So you can blame whatever party you want, but both of them have had plenty of opportunities in the past 35 years to fix this problem.
Yeah, I wasn't looking to blame parties. My point was that the Republican Party, generally speaking, wants fewer regulations. They want to deregulate as much as possible. The point wasn't to say, well, it's your fault for deregulating this in the first place. My question on that was, are you adding to a regulation, a burdensome regulation, by passing a law like this?
Well, I mean, I think that is it a regulation? Sure, I think it is, and some regulation is good. I think that certainly Republicans have taken a position. We've taken a position that overregulation from the government is not a good thing. But there's also a responsibility to protect people from what I view as a poisonous product. And there are a lot of products out there that are banned that people don't have access to because they're dangerous. And is that a regulation? Sure, but it's a good regulation. And there is no benefit to any of these dyes. There's no health benefit. There's no benefit other than money and making things look pretty and appealing to kids. So is this if you classify it as regulation, that's fine, but I think it's a good one.
Hey, let's move on to Governor Morrissey's speech tonight in his State of the State. What are you expecting him to address specifically during this, and any initiatives that you think he might be introducing?
Well, I'm going to be somewhat cautious as I answer this because Governor Morrissey has earned the right to deliver his message to the people of West Virginia without me getting out in front of that and stealing some of the thunder. So I'm going to be cautious about some of that. But I think that the things that he's been talking about, I think that he views there are some structural deficiencies in the budget, the way that things have been done in the past, and I'm willing to work with him to come to an agreement on how we do some of those things, and some of that comes from supplemental appropriations that happen mid-year or towards the end of the fiscal year, specifically how public defenders are funded. Now, that's something he's talked about, and I think conversation needs to be had about that. Some other things that we've put in the surplus section of the budget that I think he has indicated publicly that he wants to try to get those things in the front of the budget, as we refer to it, as the general revenue section. I also think that he's made it clear of things that he feels is important, and I think that clearly are very popular across West Virginia, and including the Eastern Panhandle. Things that relate to boys and girls sports and what he refers to as kind of this woke agenda. And I think that he's going to have a few bills that deal with those things. And so I expect that. I expect a lot of talk about the budget and how he intends to make cuts to government. And I think there'll be some of those in there, and trying to create efficiencies through merging of a few agencies. So I think broadly, I think those are the things that he's going to discuss.
Do you think, Jason, and again, I understand that you don't want to steal his thunder or anything. There's been a lot of talk about the budget differential, if you will. Governor Justice leaves. We're in really great shape, and now all of a sudden we might not be. And you're certainly in a position to recognize the discrepancies, I think. Do you think that that'll be a piece of what he'll talk about as well, the whole budget piece?
Oh, yeah. I think he's certainly going to lay out his vision for the budget, where he's done a lot of work. I had a meeting with him yesterday, and he has done a lot of work over the past several weeks and months, and really doing a deep dive and getting a really good understanding of the budget. So, I think you're right. I think he's going to lay some of that out of where he thinks things are, and it's really hard for me to comment on some of that because I don't know what his revenue estimate is. I would expect, where we're at in our current fiscal year is around the $5.2 billion range for this fiscal year, and I don't know where he has projections of the revenue estimates for fiscal year 26. So, once I see those numbers tonight, I'll have a sense of kind of the direction in which he's going, obviously, and the money that we have and the things that we're going to prioritize as a legislature to pass in our budget.
Senator Jason Barrett, Senate Finance Chair, our guest on the program. Tell me about the difference between the start of the first year of the Justice administration versus the first year of the Morrissey administration, Jason.
Well, I don't, I've said this several times, and I don't mean to take shots at our former governor, but I think our current governor is far less theatrical. I think that he is just going to give it to you as he sees it, very plainly and very straight. And I don't. I don't think you're going to get an analogy of a patient dying on the table, and I certainly know that he's not going to come out and suggest or recommend to the legislature of $450 million in increased taxes. So, I think that we are on sound financial footing in our state. I want to make that very clear. Is it a tough budget year? Absolutely. But we have the ability and we have the resources, really, to put this budget together, to make some cuts to government that are necessary, but without making cuts in a way that hurt the people of West Virginia.
Jason, we hear frequently make cuts to the government where necessary. Are you in a position to give an example?
Well, I think that what Governor Morrissey has come out with, and I had a meeting with Secretary Ruby, who is Chelsea Ruby, who I believe you had on the show, is the Secretary of Tourism. One of the things that the governor is doing is merging the two agencies of tourism and arts, culture, and history. So I think there will be a way in which to save some money and create efficiency. That's one example, and I can't tell you what kind of dollar amount that is. We'll see what the budget is tonight and what his recommended appropriation to tourism is, and we can go back and compare that to what the appropriation was last year to both arts, culture, and history and tourism, and see what that savings is. But that's an agency, tourism, that I think all West Virginians should be proud of, and I'm certainly proud of the job and that Secretary Ruby has done. I think you can't go really anywhere in this country without seeing some type of advertisement for West Virginia and what they have done to bring people into West Virginia to spend money, and in a lot of cases, we have people relocate and move to West Virginia because of things that they've seen on television, and really kind of put West Virginia on their radar as a place, when they're looking to vacation or to move to. They have done a great job of putting West Virginia on Americans' radar that probably never would have thought of coming to West Virginia.
It's reported that Governor Morrissey says that the rainy day fund is off limits as far as solving the current potential deficit. Have you heard the same thing? And also, would you agree with that approach?
I couldn't agree more with the governor of that position. That is the absolute last resort, and we are by no means anywhere near that. I want to make that clear to make sure the listeners understand. We are not in that type of financial position that the rainy day fund is there. It's $1.3 billion or so in the combined rainy day A and B, and we have to have that when we look to for economic development that wants to come into the state. Companies want to locate to West Virginia. They have to know that we're on solid financial ground. They have to see a very healthy rainy day fund so that they have some predictability in what the tax structure is, and that they know when they come here that we're not in a position where we're going to have to just go across the board and just raise a bunch of taxes. So that healthy rainy day fund is incredibly vital to the future of West Virginia.
Additionally, as I remember from speaking with Eric Householder, Jason, there was already, in addition to the rainy day fund, $400 million set aside in case there was an income tax shortfall from the tax cuts. Is that not correct?
That is absolutely correct, and we spoke a little bit about that when I was on the show last week, that $400 million that was put into the personal income tax reserve fund is in an interest-bearing account. I mean, my understanding, and the number I have off the top of my head, is about $430 million now, or thereabouts, and that is the growth on the interest of that $400 million that the legislature put there from surplus money in the past.
Is that also off limits?
No, I don't think that one's off limits. I think that I need to take a look at the governor's budget and understand, what his projections are and where his expenditures are to see if that's necessary. I'm hopeful that it is not necessary. The last thing that I really want to do is go into reserve funds, but it's a reserve for a reason, and that was there for that personal income tax shortfall because we did give a significant tax cut to the people of West Virginia. And so that's why, I think it's incredibly prudent by the legislature for us to put $400 million there just in case.
Jason, thank you. Appreciate your time today. Have a good day.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jason.